Forget the usual pleasantries. Forget the music bump. If you are a Cleveland Browns fan, I don't need you to take a deep breath. I need you to hold your breath because what you witnessed on Sunday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers wasn't just a loss, wasn't a bad game, and it wasn't a public execution. It was a goddamn confession. It was the moment this entire frustrating, beautiful, maddening, cursed to hell organization stood on the biggest, brightest national stage under the highest powered lights and confessed to every single one of your worst fears about its deep-seated institutional dysfunction. This wasn't a football game. This was a nationally televised performance art piece on the tragedy of Cleveland sports. And at the epicenter of this catastrophic, soul-crushing collapse, this confession stands one name, a name that will now live in Cleveland infamy, a name that represents all of our agony, Dillon Gabriel. If you somehow managed to survive watching Sunday's unmitigated disaster, and you're here now, then subscribing to this channel becomes mandatory because we are about to peel back the layers of this disaster. And I promise you, this goes so much deeper than one quarterback having a bad day. This is the story of complete and total organizational failure, a stubborn, myopic pride that is actively, visibly, and publicly destroying a championship caliber roster. For every Browns fan out there craving the raw, unfiltered, brutally honest analysis that you will never ever get from a sanitized, scripted team press conference, this is for you. This story has it all: staggering incompetence, locker room mutiny, a fan base in open revolt, and a coach whose stubborn pride might be single-handedly destroying a championship caliber roster. Don't look away. You can't. This is the Cleveland nightmare, and we're living it in real time. Let's start with the crime scene itself, and I mean crime scene because what happened to the Browns' season on Sunday night was a felony. The statistics from that game tell a story so devastating it almost feels fictional, a novel written by a sadist. Dillon Gabriel attempted over 50 passes. 50. Let me say that again so it sinks in because the number is nauseating. 50 desperate, panicked heaves into the night sky. A futile, pathetic attempt to salvage an unsalvageable performance. And what was the result of those 50 attempts? He barely scratched 220 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 explosive plays, 0 moments of leadership, 0 anything that remotely resembled professional quarterbacking in the National Football League. Now, on the surface, his completion percentage might look respectable to someone who didn't watch the game, to a casual who just checked the box score on Monday morning, but anyone with a pair of eyes, anyone who sat through that televised torture, immediately recognized the horrifying, humiliating truth. These weren't meaningful completions, they were a systematic, almost mechanical display of surrender. This was a symphony of checkdowns, dump-offs, and pathetic 3-yard completions on 3rd and 8. This wasn't quarterbacking, this was the systematic, premeditated destruction of an entire offense, one surrendered play at a time. Every snap was a self-inflicted wound, every checkdown was a white flag, every drive was a funeral procession for the team's playoff hopes. The most humiliating, the most enraging part of this entire fiasco, the part that keeps me up at night, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense wasn't even trying to be tricky. They didn't disguise their coverages. They didn't throw complex exotic blitz packages at him. They played straightforward too-high safety looks, practically begging Gabriel, daring him with every fiber of their being to have the courage, the nerve, the arm talent to throw the ball downfield. And he couldn't do it, or perhaps worse, he wouldn't. The intermediate routes, the 10 to 15 yard plays that are the absolute lifeblood of any functional NFL offense, the routes that keep the chains moving and keep the defense honest, were sitting wide open time and time again. You could see the splits between the zone defenders. You could see the receivers creating separation. You could see the opportunity, and repeatedly, relentlessly, Gabriel chose the safer, the cowardly, the predictable option, checking it down underneath, accepting a minimal gain, and effectively surrendering the drive before it ever had a chance to start. The clock would tick, the play clock would tick, and Gabriel's internal clock was moving at a geological pace, only to hit the eject button and toss a pointless flutterball to the flat. By the fourth quarter, it had devolved into pure, unadulterated comedy. Steelers defenders were literally laughing between plays. That is not a hyperbolic statement, that is a fact caught on camera. The footage captured defensive backs smiling, pointing, and openly mocking the pathetic, predictable state of Cleveland's offense. Think about that for a second. Professional athletes, grown men, publicly, overtly, ridiculing their opponents in the middle of a nationally televised game. When does that happen? It happens when the quarterback play becomes so utterly, comprehensively pathetic that you can no longer even pretend to respect it. You don't mock a worthy opponent, you mock the class clown. And Dillon Gabriel has become the league's class clown, a walking, breathing punchline. The game was over. Not because the Steelers were elite, but because the Browns offense was a self-detonating disaster, a meticulously planned act of organizational sabotage. As the game clock mercifully ticked down, Browns fans watched in a state of stunned disbelief that quickly curdled into pure, unadulterated rage, which then transformed into a social media explosion of historic, terrifying proportions. Twitter, or X, became ground zero for a city's collective primal scream, a digital riot that lasted all night and bled into the Monday morning commute. The memes arrived instantly, and they were merciless, dripping with the venom of decades of accumulated failure. One viral post showed Gabriel's face photoshopped onto a practice squad roster with the caption, "Finally found his appropriate level." Another compared his pathetic stat line to those of the most notoriously failed Browns quarterbacks, demonstrating in a sick twist of fate that even Brandon Weeden's most disastrous performances in Cleveland were somehow statistically superior to Gabriel's primetime debacle. Weeden, they're making Weeden look like a Hall of Famer. This wasn't just a few angry fans blowing off steam. These posts were getting thousands upon thousands of likes and retweets, multiplying exponentially every single minute, a terrifying tide of digital dissent that the organization can no longer afford to ignore. The discourse turned absolutely savage, a bloodletting in the comments section. One particularly brutal tweet, which gained over 47,000 likes overnight, simply stated, "We traded Joe Flacco for this. Start Sanders immediately before this season becomes completely unsalvageable." That's the core thesis right there. Another long-suffering Brown supporter wrote, "Dillon Gabriel isn't the answer. He's the problem. He is the anchor actively drowning this franchise." The reply section was a tidal wave of furious agreement, a digital stampede. GIFs mocking Gabriel's constant repetitive checkdowns were everywhere. Fan-made videos painstakingly highlighting all the wide-open deep receivers he flat-out missed downfield went viral. This wasn't your typical fan frustration after a tough loss. This was a complete and total unified rejection of a player by the entire Cleveland community, a public divorce enacted in 280 characters or less. And then, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, just when you thought the internal critique was bad enough, the national media personalities joined in on the public flogging, turning the entire situation into a league-wide spectacle of shame. Colin Cowherd opened his Monday morning show by declaring, "The Cleveland Browns have a legitimate franchise quarterback sitting on their bench, while Kevin Stefanski is actively choosing to destroy their season with a stubborn, misguided, and frankly cowardly loyalty toward a player who is clearly and painfully overmatched." The word cowardly hung in the air, a devastating accusation. Then Stephen A. Smith went absolutely nuclear. "This is coaching malpractice of the highest order," he screamed. "Everyone watching that game, everyone with a functioning brain, everyone who has ever watched a game of football knows that SHEDEUR Sanders gives the Cleveland Browns a better chance to win football games. Everyone." Yet Kevin Stefanski refuses to make the obvious game-saving change. Because why exactly? Is it pride? Is it bureaucratic stubbornness? Is it organizational politics designed to protect his own mistake? Meanwhile, their entire season, this golden opportunity, is circling the drain at lightning speed, and he's standing there holding the plug. Skip Bayless, a man who rarely agrees with Stephen A. on what time the sun rises, was nodding his head vigorously. "I've watched SHEDEUR Sanders since his time at Colorado," Skip chimed in, his voice rising in exasperation. "That young man possesses genuine NFL arm talent, a real leadership presence, and a competitive fire that you just can't teach." Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel looks completely and totally overwhelmed when he faces a legitimate NFL defense. He looks smaller, slower, and weaker with every snap. This is not a complicated decision, people. You start your best quarterback, and the Cleveland Browns are refusing to do that. The criticism wasn't just coming from the talking heads. Even former players were aghast. Veterans who understand the subtle dynamics of the locker room and the harsh realities of the league. Robert Griffin III tweeted, "When your quarterback attempts 50-plus passes and generates barely 220 yards with 0 touchdowns against a division rival, something is fundamentally broken." The Cleveland Browns offense looked JV level tonight. Unacceptable. That's a former number 2 overall pick, a former Rookie of the Year, saying the offense looked like it belonged in high school. But the most damning indictment, the most chilling sign of internal rot, came from another former Browns quarterback, whose name we will diplomatically omit, but you know who I'm talking about, who texted a local reporter, "Everyone inside that building knows SHEDEUR should be playing. The coach is scared of admitting he made a mistake, and meanwhile, the season is slipping away." That sentence right there is the entire story in a devastating nutshell. Pride over winning. Do not misunderstand the severity of this situation. This transcends a single bad performance. This is not a one-off anomaly. This is a pattern. Dillon Gabriel has struggled consistently throughout this season. Opposing defenses figured him out weeks ago after the first 2 games. His limitations are not just present, they are glaringly, tragically obvious. His processing speed is inadequate. His arm strength is marginal at best. He can't throw the necessary out routes with zip, and he floats deep balls like they're balloons. His pocket presence is non-existent. He panics at the first sign of pressure, bailing out of clean pockets, or checking the ball down prematurely, and his decision-making under pressure is highly questionable. He holds the ball too long, or he throws into coverage when he's finally forced to move. Yet the coaching staff, led by the increasingly desperate and rigid Kevin Stefanski, continues to trot him out there week after week, expecting a different result. And what, again, is the definition of insanity? That's right, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. Stefanski is not only practicing insanity, he is coaching it, he is championing it, and he is forcing his entire team to participate in it. And here is where the complications intensify, where the story turns from simple incompetence to a full-blown catastrophic internal crisis: the locker room dynamics. Multiple sources with direct, intimate knowledge of the situation are describing a growing, palpable, and potentially explosive frustration among the players. The offensive linemen are reportedly exhausted, demoralized, and furious from protecting a quarterback who refuses to utilize their efforts. They are creating time, forming a clean pocket, giving Gabriel a luxury most quarterbacks dream of, and Gabriel is just dumping the ball off immediately, wasting their effort, wasting their time, and making their physical, brutal jobs feel completely pointless. The receivers are running crisp, precise routes, getting open consistently downfield, winning their matchups, and Gabriel is flat out ignoring them, choosing the path of least resistance and maximum safety over the aggression, the bravery, the will needed to win a football game. One veteran receiver supposedly told his position coach after the game, in a moment of raw, unedited frustration, "Why am I even running deep routes if the quarterback won't throw the ball beyond 15 yards? I'm killing myself to get open, and he's looking for the check down before the snap even happens." But it's the defensive players who are absolutely righteously furious, and they have every right to be. Cleveland's defense against the Steelers played championship caliber football. They held the Steelers offense to under 20 points, a number that should be a guaranteed win in the modern NFL. They created multiple turnovers. They gave the offense short fields to work with time and time again, gift-wrapping scoring opportunities. And Dillon Gabriel squandered every single opportunity. He didn't just fail to capitalize, he actively sabotaged their efforts. The Browns' defense is watching their extraordinary game-winning efforts be completely wasted, nullified, and turned into humiliating losses by an offense that is incapable of capitalizing on their gifts. The tension reportedly boiled over after the game, and this is where it gets real when one of the defensive captains, a revered, respected leader in that locker room, allegedly confronted Gabriel directly. Sources say words were exchanged, not just hushed tones, but loud, angry words, and teammates had to intervene to physically separate them. Coach Stefanski, of course, downplayed the incident publicly, using all the typical coach-speak cliches about passion and competitiveness. But those inside the building confirmed that the tension in that locker room has reached a critical, potentially explosive level, one that could tear the team apart from the inside. They are watching their season die because the coach is stubbornly protecting a visibly incompetent player, and the defensive players are reaching their breaking point. But the most telling, the most maddening, the most bizarre aspect of this entire debacle is the looming, undeniable, game-changing presence of SHEDEUR Sanders. He is sitting on that sideline, watching this unmitigated disaster unfold week after week, knowing deep down, in his gut, that he could fix this. And his teammates know it too. They see him in practice every single day. They witness his genuine NFL arm talent, the velocity he puts on the ball, the downfield accuracy. They witness his natural natural confidence, his innate magnetic leadership qualities, the kind of presence that demands attention and respect. They recognize that he represents the Cleveland Browns' best and perhaps only chance of salvaging this season and making a serious playoff run. Yet the coaching staff refuses to play him. Why? That's the million-dollar question that is driving fans, media, and players to madness. Is it organizational politics, a mandate from above? Is it pride over his draft position versus Gabriel's? Is it a genuine fear of putting a rookie in a pressure situation? A fear that, frankly, is less dangerous than the guarantee of losing with Gabriel. At this point, nobody understands the reasoning anymore. The coach's logic has become completely opaque, a black box of bad decisions. Rumors are now circulating that teammates are actively campaigning for a quarterback change behind the scenes, a low-grade mutiny. Multiple veterans have supposedly approached Coach Stefanski privately, all but begging him, pleading with him to give SHEDEUR an opportunity before it's too late. The offensive coordinator, who has to craft the impossible game plans that cater to Gabriel's crippling limitations, allegedly agrees, believing that Sanders gives the offense a far better chance of actually scoring points and utilizing the wide array of talent they have. Even the position coaches, the men who work with the quarterbacks every day, are privately acknowledging that Gabriel's limitations have become an insurmountable obstacle to success, a wall they cannot climb. Yet Kevin Stefanski remains unmovable, publicly supporting Gabriel despite the mountain of evidence, the avalanche of losses, and the palpable fear suggesting he is making a catastrophic season-ending mistake. His refusal is no longer coaching, it's a form of active negligence. Let's just address the elephant in the room, the 800-pound gorilla that has been sitting on Stefanski's chest since Sunday night. This isn't merely about Dillon Gabriel's struggles anymore. This is about Kevin Stefanski's credibility as a head coach evaporating in real time. His refusal to adapt, his stubborn, self-destructive loyalty toward a clearly struggling player, his apparent inability to recognize the obvious, blinking, siren-wailing solution sitting right there on his bench. These decisions are not just costing his team games. They are actively, visibly destroying his reputation league-wide. Other coaching colleagues are privately questioning his judgment. Front office executives around the league are wondering whether he has lost his locker room completely. He is being exposed as a rigid, inflexible coach who would rather fail on his own terms than succeed by admitting a mistake. Stefanski's post-game press conference became a meme, a legendary moment of self-parody in and of itself. A reporter asked him directly, the question we all wanted answered, have you considered playing SHEDEUR Sanders given the offense's ongoing crippling struggles? Stefanski's response, delivered with a straight, defiant, and frankly unbelievable face, was, Dillon gives us the best chance of winning. Twitter exploded instantly. That single tone-deaf quote became the rallying cry for a frustrated, betrayed fan base demanding an immediate coaching change. One fan edited the clip of him saying it and added a sitcom laugh track. Another set it to circus music. A third superimposed the face of a cartoon donkey over Stefanski's head. The mockery was relentless, merciless, and absolutely brutal because the quote was not just wrong. It was a denial of reality, a denial of the visual evidence of the game, and a slap in the face to every person who sat through that entire 4-hour ordeal. And now consider the broader implications, the sheer tragic waste of organizational resource and player talent. The Browns have constructed a championship caliber roster at almost every single position, except for the one that matters most, quarterback. They have elite defensive talent, quality offensive weapons, a solid offensive line, and special teams that are performing adequately. Everything necessary for a deep, competitive playoff run exists on this team. Everything except for competent quarterback play. Gabriel's severe limitations are handcuffing the entire operation, neutralizing the speed, the agility, and the strength of the players around him. Meanwhile, the potential solution, the one player with the arm and the mind to unlock this dormant offense, sits on the bench, inactive, while the season deteriorates at an alarming rate. And you can bet the Pittsburgh fans are enjoying this situation immensely. They are feasting on Cleveland's misery. Their social media accounts have been flooding Cleveland's pages with mocking messages that cut deeper than any loss. Thanks for the easy win, one Steelers supporter wrote. Another, more insidiously, said, please keep starting Gabriel. Sincerely, the entire AFC North. The rivalry has only intensified because Cleveland's own dysfunction has handed a division opponent precious, demoralizing momentum while simultaneously destroying their own playoff aspirations. This defeat wasn't just a loss. This was a season-defining disaster, one that could could potentially eliminate Cleveland from serious contention before Thanksgiving even arrives, turning what was supposed to be a season of hope into a cruel, extended nightmare. The national narrative has shifted dramatically, catastrophically overnight. In the preseason, analysts were considering the Browns as potential dark horse Super Bowl contenders. Now they're the butt of every joke, a case study in organizational dysfunction, coaching incompetence, and tragically wasted defensive talent. Cleveland has once again become the league's laughingstock, the reliable annual punchline. Another promising season derailed by another quarterback disaster. Another year wasted. All the hope, all the promise, all the potential, gone, vanished, erased by one stubborn coach and one overmatched quarterback. This brings us to the uncomfortable truth that the Cleveland organization must now confront the hard, unavoidable reality. Dillon Gabriel represents the sunk cost fallacy personified. The organization invested draft capital in him. They handed him the starting job. They publicly committed to him, placing their own reputation on his shoulders. Now they are watching that investment fail in spectacular, humiliating fashion. But they are refusing to admit their mistake, continuing to throw good money, or in this case, good competitive weeks, after bad. And all the while, a better, more talented, more capable option sits right there, available, ready, and eager for the opportunity. This is organizational stubbornness destroying a competitive season for no logical, defensible, or football-related reason. It is the height of malpractice. The Twitter discourse on Monday morning was absolutely merciless. A constant stream of digital venom. One of the top trending hashtags was "Start Sanders immediately." Another was simply "Gabriel gotta go." Cleveland's entire social media landscape has transformed into a unified, all-consuming anti-Gabriel movement. Fans are creating mock trade proposals for him, proposing to send him to Siberia for a bag of stale footballs. Others are designing missing posters for the Browns' offense, featuring Gabriel's picture with the caption, "Last seen checking the ball down on 3rd and long." The creativity has been impressive, the anger has been palpable, and the message has been utterly unmistakable. Cleveland demands a quarterback change, and they demand it immediately. Some fans have gone even further, organizing digital protests designed to make noise that the front office simply cannot ignore. Thousands have changed their social media profile pictures to images of SHEDEUR Sanders, a silent, coordinated call for change. Others have coordinated mass tweeting campaigns directed at the Browns' official accounts, flooding their mentions with the same simple demand. Fan podcasts have dedicated entire emergency episodes, running hours long, to dissecting Gabriel's failures and advocating for SHEDEUR's immediate promotion. This is not a fringe movement. This is not a small, isolated group of overly emotional critics. This is the overwhelming majority of the Browns fan base, united behind a single, desperate, correct demand: play SHEDEUR Sanders. Now, the Browns organization faces a critical, career-defining decision point. They can continue to support their struggling quarterback, protecting the fragile ego of their coach, and risking losing the locker room completely, while they watch the season deteriorate beyond the point of salvation, guaranteeing another year of failure. Or they can admit they made a mistake, suffer the 2 days of negative press about admitting the mistake, give SHEDEUR Sanders the opportunity he has earned and deserves, and potentially rescue a competitive season that is currently hanging by a single fraying thread. The clock is ticking. Their division rivals are gaining ground, sensing the weakness. The playoff window is closing rapidly, slamming shut with every passing check down. This isn't an unfortunate circumstance anymore. This is coaching malpractice. It's an organizational failure. It is a complete and total disconnect between the team's leadership and cold, hard, obvious reality. The Pittsburgh loss crystallized everything that Brown supporters have feared for months. Their team lacks a quarterback capable of winning meaningful games. Their coaching staff refuses to make the necessary, obvious game-saving changes, and their season is spiraling uncontrollably while the undeniable solution sits right there in plain sight, waiting for the call. One question, and one question only, remains, haunting every fan's thought. How long before the Cleveland Browns organization finally acknowledges the obvious truth that everyone else in the entire world already recognizes? This season was supposed to be about the Browns' resurgence, their triumph over the curse, their moment of competitive grace. Instead, it's becoming another quarterback disaster, another wasted year, another national embarrassment, all because the coaching staff refuses to make the one glaringly obvious decision that could save them all. I've said my piece. I've laid out the facts. I've given you the evidence. The question is now for you, the long-suffering fans, the people who have bled for this team for decades. How much longer can Stefanski wait? How many more losses? How many more humiliating checkdowns? How many more angry locker room confrontations before he finally breaks and does the right thing? Drop your thoughts, your anger, your demands, and your frustration in the comments below. And if you're tired of the official narratives, the sanitized excuses, and the sugar-coated lies, and you want the real story, the brutal, unedited truth, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because this Cleveland catastrophe is far from over, and you won't want to miss what happens next. The season is on the line. The coach's job is on the line. Everything is on the line. And right now, we are all holding our breath.